And a very good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to a Lyceum Night coming to you from Poole down on the south coast of the UK. We have a series of evenings where the topic is always about spiritualism and parts of it. We've had some amazing people give their time to us, not only from the UK, but from abroad. And it's always a very lively and engaging evening. It's an evening of exploration. It's an evening of partaking. So we invite questions. We invite your interaction. I suspect tonight we're going to have a lot of fun because we have an absolutely wonderful lady with us, Simone Key. Simone, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me to attend your show.
Absolute pleasure. I could not bypass you at all. Actually, very interesting. Before we get on a little bit more about you, we resumed our circles fairly recently here, and we were doing it in a different format of running it as set courses. So it's got a beginning, middle, and end. And the first tutor who took it actually had an assessment with yourself at the college, and where it was said that he will be running a course, and he said, not very likely. And surprise So wonderful. Simone, my darling, if you could let us know just a wee bit about yourself. People like to know, where did this path start for you? Is this something you grew up with?
Okay. Well, if I start at the very beginning, with my family, my mum was a Jew and my father was Presbyterian, and because they had different religions, my sister and I were taught that we had to find our own. We were not to be indoctrinated by them. So we had no religious education whatever at home, and we were free to find our own. So I ended up as a very staunch atheist. I didn't like what I saw around me. And so right up until my 30s, I was very much an atheist. And I have to say that life was a lot easier when I didn't believe there was a God. That's all I can say. But that's really what happened. And then when I was I was very nearly 30, my mum passed very suddenly at 46. And I just could not believe that was the end of her. I just couldn't believe that. And that's when my mind started to think of maybe about life after death and so on. And then, without going into too much detail, certain things happened to me, and things kept happening to me that I didn't understand. And then a very good friend of mine said to me, "Why don't?"
Well, we just
if I thought. And I ended up going to see a medium who told me about mediumship and told me about what abilities I may have. And that's when I started to explore it. I actually started off looking into healing, and I still believe that I am a healer first and foremost. But that's how it all really started, and from then on, it was just I really set out to prove that it was a lot of rubbish, to be honest. And that's why I'm here tonight. That's how I found my direction and how I find my life. It transformed my life in many, many different ways. And then I started to go to the Art of Affinity College as a student. And then in the mid-90s, I became a tutor. And then in 2007, I was ordained as a minister, and that's where I'm about, so that's I work as a medium, I work as a healer, I work especially as a trance medium, and as a teacher. That's what I do. That's where I'm at.
Absolutely wonderful. And, I love the synchronicity and things. We had a healing workshop here today, And two of the things that you mentioned there was a lady who is just investigating spiritualism, exactly the same situation as yourself there, two different parents, two different orthodoxies, became an atheist, but now is starting to think, hang on, there's some. I find that quite interesting, because that means probably coming from that atheist route, that you haven't been indoctrinated to, you're going to hear the trumpet call, or only 444 of you are going to make it. And, you haven't got any of that to hold you back.
Yeah.
And also, very interestingly, about the healing route. And again, this was brought up today in our workshop, saying about, how many of our very capable mediums today started off as healers, because you're devoting, we're not getting that validation that we get on the platform. You're not getting that validation we have in a private sitting. You're just giving, you're just working with spirit, you're training yourself to work with spirit and understand what is, will be, and to hone that channel down. So yeah, how fascinating is it? I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Very warm welcome to everybody watching us. Please remember, this evening is also devoted to yourselves. So any questions or comments, please pop them in the box and we will always bring them up. I don't know where to start with you, Simone, because your career is illustrious, and I
hard work.
Well, you know what? The hard work mirrors it.
Yeah.
It is a reflection. The more you put into it, and the more dedicated and focused energy that you put into your development, because tonight's topic, we're talking about the educational theme within our movement. And I've certainly learned, and especially in this time where we have this virtual presence now, which in the main we didn't have pre-COVID, the people that really sort of shine are the ones who have really, and I'm not being dismissive to other people, but they really have mastered their art, or continue, they've not mastered their art, they continue to master their art through their own development and continual development.
I just think that technology is here to stay.
Yeah.
And for me, it's our job to promote the spirit, if you like. We're their PR. So therefore, we need to find as many different avenues to pursue, so that, people have access to the understanding and the phenomena and philosophy of spiritualism. And that's how we can do it today. I think we've got to keep up to date. We can't keep, sitting in the dark saying, is there anybody there? We've got to use the criteria of technology, because that to me is the way forward. It's so progressive because it reaches people.
Indeed. And it's a very timely reminder, I think, for our movement. Forgive me. And again, I always say, when I say things, I'm not being barbed, I'm not being dismissive of anything at all. But I do feel myself that our movement had sort of got into a little bit of a rut pre-COVID. It did become very focused on the message. The energy that abounded in many churches and centres was, we got through that service, thank goodness that was fit, and it was like, well, hang on, this is a growing thing that needs nurturing and needs encouragement and needs those opportunities to develop the people coming into our churches and not make them a medium. Because I think quite a few places, and Paul was the same as well, going back in the past, people come in and you go, medium, healer, medium, heat, and it was like preordained for them. Whereas, now we've got this opportunity to reinvent how we interact, because we're getting so many new people coming in.
I think for me, it's important that we remember that healing is the foundation of every medium. And it doesn't necessarily mean about the transference of energy, but every word you say should be a healing vocabulary, because our words have an impact. We've all been hurt by them. so we can all be uplifted and enlightened by them. And so whether the medium is doing healing for the physical body or for the mind or for the emotions of the individual, as opposed to just speaking to them, has to come from that healing foundation, in my opinion, because that is what I believe we're all about, trying to make our world a better place.
Indeed. And do you know what? That is a lovely allegory there. You said we've all been hurt by words. How true is that? And often when you try and especially with our healers, because we don't get that instant validation that an evidential medium may have. And if any healers are listening either tonight or in the future, if you're ever doubting your work, just think back to when somebody said something to you that really cut you to the core, and think of that in that negative view, and then think of what you're doing in that positive view. How can you doubt that?
Yeah, absolutely. No.
We've got a question here from lovely Jamie Williamson, who has studied under you at the college there. Simone, how do we encourage students to embrace the philosophy that underpins, presumably, our movement?
Well, oh dear, at the risk of rocking a boat, I actually feel that the only way we can encourage people to embrace spiritualist philosophy has to be to make it interesting. Because sometimes we get a little bit tired of the same old stories and the same old words, and we need to put it into more modern parlance, so that we can all understand what's being said, but also to compare the past with today. No, we don't want to forget our history. That's not what I'm saying. But we need to be able to bring that history back to the present and say how we can move on from it, and not keep going back 150 years, 160 years all the time. And that's how I feel. And I feel that if we use everyday language and not spiritualist jargon, if we look at everyday life and start to see how we can use spiritualism every day, and not just go on about what the philosophy was of, again, 150 years ago, but how it fits today and how we can learn from it. So the essence of the philosophy is there, but we have to be able to, if you like, convert it into more modern day, understanding. And that's what I feel will bring people, will help people understand the philosophy behind spiritualism. And also to have more discussion evenings or groups as well. That's a very good way of encouraging people, because let people speak. Let people who don't speak. Ask them their opinion. Be interested in people, because that's what spiritualism is for me. It's about people. It's not just a religion. It's not just a philosophy. It's not just a way of life. It's about people, and people matter.
Very much. So seriously, I love that. I'm a great exponent of our philosophy should bring that education in, bring that awareness in, bring that energy in for people, not only to engage them and to actually, sit up and listen and really take it in and interact it, but to give you tools that when you walk out of the doors of your church or your centre or your virtual place of worship, wherever, to live in today's world.
Absolutely. It's got to be that way. There's no point. There's no room for the past anymore. We can learn from it, but we've got to move on.
Incredible. Yeah, definitely. It is we do have a penchant for going back to the greats, and quoting, well, Gordon would say this and Glim would say that, which is fine. There was a lot of, but today we are creating the greats of tomorrow, and we've really got to be mindful of that. Going back it's a comfort factor, isn't it? Because it's a set thing. It was said, therefore it is. And we were having this discussion shortly before going live about things that may not be proven but were accepted. as proof, therefore, and we continue that energy on. But spiritualism, when it first came into its inception, it was a very progressive movement. It was a very vital movement. We saw great changes within our laws and our social structure because people were encouraged to think for themselves. People were encouraged to be more mindful and aware of how our interactions interact, and to see where rights are right and wrongs can be improved. And we're only going to get that if we actually motivate people who come into our churches and centres to say that you can make a difference. It's not up to a big religion, organisation or whatever. I always say, one of my favourite little sayings is, every great religion, every great organisation, every great empire started with one person. Why can't we be that person?
Yeah, I totally understand that, but I also feel it's important that when we encourage people to come into spiritualism, or maybe we're at the door for them, like you are very much involved with the church at Poole. But for me, one of the most important jobs of any church is a person that welcomes people in. That first meeting is what's going to encourage people into the church to stay in the church. And then, and nowadays, because society has changed so much, it's much harder to get someone to make a cup of tea, or to sell a raffle ticket, or to do that job of welcoming on the door, or to be a committee member. It's people seem to value their free time more than they did in the past. They don't want that commitment and responsibility as much. But it's up to us to show people that what we're opening the doors to is something worthwhile, that's going to change their lives, it's going to transform them for the future, and that we can take as much or as little as we want from it. We don't have to immerse them into it. We don't have to say you've got to do X number of courses before you can say that you're a spiritualist. It's got to be, we've got to ease them in gently, but not overwhelm them as well. And just to show, and to be honest, I think that the way to encourage people is to be a decent person yourself.
Oops. Oops. I'll leave now.
Yeah, but it is. It's all very well saying, well, the spiritualism teaches us this, that, and the other. But if those people are not kind, what's the point? What is the point?
Yeah, and sadly, somebody jokingly said, if you want to meet unspiritual people, go to a spiritualist church. Yeah. And I just thought, well, there is a grain of truth in that sometimes. But however, really good point. That initial welcome, it's all about that first. We only get one chance to make that first impression, and if we.
Yeah, because for some of us, I've always been what I call an all or nothing person. If I want to do something, I want to do all of it. I don't want to do a bit here and a bit there, And when we take up awards, for instance, we want to learn all about what that means. And any kind of award really within spiritualism isn't about a title. It's not about status. It's really saying that that you're up to the standard required. Yeah. That's what it means. That's all it means. Yeah. It means nothing else. The rest you've got to do yourself, But I've always wanted to explore. I've always wanted I've always found it fascinating to want to know more about why this happens and how that happens and so on. And for me, I remember there was, when I think I was doing my officiance training. And one of the things I had to do in that was a particular course on world religions. And I dreaded it. I absolutely dreaded it. It looked ever so dry and really boring. And yet, when I did it, it was the best course I've ever done, because it taught me more about why people are like they are than anything else I've ever done in terms of education. And if we understand each other by religion, then we understand why people believe what they believe. It doesn't mean we have to go along with them, but at least we've got to learn how to be tolerant. And that's what I feel that education should be about, helping us to become tolerant and understanding of each other.
Indeed, because most discourse we find between different religious factions, different nationalities, different ethnicities are all trackable back to the fear energy.
Yeah, and ignorance.
I don't understand it. Take it away. It's going to hurt me. It might hurt me. It might bite me. I don't know. And if we can dispel that fear energy, then actually we can then start engaging on that soul level, and amazing things are possible. Absolutely amazing things. There's a comment there back from Jamie. Discussion groups sound like a great idea. Indeed, they are. And it is something, these virtual discussion groups have gained great precedence during this time because people can actually talk.
Yeah.
As I say, you know, especially with working mediums, we're either too busy working ourselves. When we're off, we very rarely go and see another medium work.
True.
True. What are you doing here? What do you want? Why are you here?
That's right, yeah. Almost seen as a threat.
I can't give you a message. But in this arena, we can all talk and share, which is wonderful. So thank you, Jamie. Phil Shaw, comment there from Phil. Discussion groups as an integral part of spiritualist church agendas, as an essential component of getting particularly younger people interested in contemporary spirituality and what it offers in terms of self-validation and understanding.
Yeah. Personally, I think that discussion groups in every form is a good idea. But I feel that personal development really is something that we should be offering much more than we do. Not about spiritual development as such, understand the spirit, discarnate, but we need to understand the spirit incarnate. And I feel that what Phil has said about self-validation and understanding, it really does matter. Understanding our own composition for a start, and our own nature. I think that would help. But I know, as I said to you before, I am chair of an organization called SNUI, which is the internet branch of the Spiritualist National Union. And we've done a lot over the last few years trying to encourage young people in. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, they don't stay. And maybe it's, maybe a sign of the times. It may be many different reasons. But it is a problem because it seems to appeal more, I don't take this personally, anybody, but more to middle-aged people than to very young people, because not many young people are born into spiritualist families. Or in my own case, I've let my children, although they're well and truly adults and I'm a grandmother, but I've always felt that my children shouldn't have the indoctrination because I didn't have it. It wouldn't be right for me to tell them they have to be spiritualists when I was told I should be free to make up my own mind. So although my children are very sympathetic and supportive of what I do, they're not interested.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I do see something in the younger generation, because this, and not being dismissive there, Phil, or anybody with this comment, I came into spiritualism through my parents when I was about 11. And then, and that's only about 10 years ago, but anyway, then it used to be very much the cry of, we've got to get younger people in our churches. And today we're having that same cry. But I'm seeing a change in generations now, and speaking to, I'm of the generation now where I could be a grandfather, talking to mothers and the next generation down and saying the same thing to them about their kids. But there is starting to come to light this awareness of not a spiritualism as we understand it, but more probably along the metaphysical side, because they use phrases like, oh, it's got a really good vibe there. And they talk about people and they use terminology. And I've said to them, what does that mean? They said, well, they just don't feel right. And I think, oh, that is really interesting. That is really interesting.
Yeah,
So,
I do think that young people today need to have some kind of objective, and I think Phil was right when he wrote about, self-development and personal development and things like that, that I feel that it doesn't always have to be about the spirit discarnate. I think that's where the fear comes from with parents, that they think that we're going to make their children mediums and they're going to be out there, but it is a difficult subject, I think, to get children involved or young people involved. I don't know if I would want particularly children, but young people I would, to take it to the next level, when it's got to be progressive.
I think, we've got to be honest with ourselves, those involved in churches and centres, and saying, are we short-circuiting the process because we advise people to join an open circle? And you see many open circles advertise, join the open circle and practice your message giving. And to do that, and they've sort of cut out that first step of saying, okay, this is you.
Yes. Yeah.
We're here to develop you.
Yeah.
So you feel your presence, your power, your place.
I mean, I was once asked some years ago now by our local secondary school if I would take a course there for young people. No, when I say young people, I'm talking about 13 to 15-year-olds. I'm not talking about, very young children. And it was all about awareness. That was the subject I was going to do. It wasn't about communicating with spirit. It was just about awareness and understanding of the self. But I was cancelled by the governors because they had a different religion and they didn't like the idea of what I was doing. So they cancelled it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're up about. And that's what we're up against. That's the problem.
I've come up against very similar energy down here. We've got a university local to us, which has expanded over the years. So I put forward a couple of proposals for fresher weeks to introduce people, not to bring them in to get a message, not to bring them in to make mediums, but just to introduce them to somewhere where you can go, you can be yourself, you can relax, you can sit in with the healing, you can do all sorts of things for yourself. And you've got some, you're out on this big adventure now away from home and everything. So, there's somewhere where you actually can go and be safe and talk on that soul level. But again, fell a little bit foul there of we don't advertise religious organizations. And I said, so how come there are all these stands at your Freshers Week? And I was just like, okay. Lovely Tim Abbott.
Oh,
good
hi.
evening.
Oh, hi, Tim.
Back from your travels.
I think, I think it's because we don't make it appealing for them. That's my opinion.
Sadly, I agree. Our services here at Poole, we take slightly different presentation on them, but I have been out as a serving medium and as a congregation and just sat there and thinking, good God, is this ever going to end? And I'm not being disrespectful because it was so high church and so
I think that is, but I think that may be one of the problems, is introducing them somewhere outside of a church to introduce them into the church later. That might help, might be just the word church might put them off, so I think if we have something like, say, just, a village hall or a town hall or just a room somewhere where they could just meet up that's not in a church, I think that would be a good start,
Funny you should say that. because thank you, Tim. I hope you're both well, you and Jeanette. The lovely Jack from Denmark.
Oh, hi.
And he was saying before COVID, we had what we called spiritual cafe, where people could come in for a tea, coffee, and a sweet. And we put different subjects up to debate, people in ages, and there was debate both in the forum as well as around the small tables. So, yeah, picking up on that same energy there of that much more relaxed and informal, where I know I do hear very much what you're saying there about the word church, and this has been a little topic that's been bouncing around quite a lot. Some people, I get it. Some people do get turned off by the word church. However, a lot of people find a great deal of comfort.
Comfort, yeah. But
So,
but you also get the other side of that coin, which is, over the years, I've come across a lot of people where I'm in a spiritualist church and I'm taking a group and and then somebody will say to me, "Oh, do you think we ought to have a cross because that'll make me feel safe?" And I say, well, why does that? It's only a symbol. Why does that make you feel safe?
Yeah.
But we are dealing with indoctrination. That's the problem. But if we can get young people away from that indoctrination and away into something that's just on their own territory, so to speak, then I think we've got a chance, a good chance.
And also how we interact with people as well. I make great effort here in the advertising, which is on not only web-based, but also social media-based and chalkboards outside the church, of saying things like, we have a divine service, which is prayer, philosophy, healing, and evidential to try and just keep getting out there with the understanding of what you may find inside the doors. And plus, at this time, because of the now virtual part of our movement, which is ever growing.
Hello? Oh, God. Hello?
Hello, we seem to have hit a little hiccup there somehow. Good. You seem to have lost Simone for the moment there. Something went horribly wrong. I don't quite. Oh, there we go. Hello. Don't worry, my darling. We're having gremlins tonight.
Yeah, there might be some storms around. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, we're back. Hello, everybody. Anyway, I forgot where we were, but never mind. So, yeah, just picking back up on that thread with Jack and indeed what you said there about looking at probably what we could term as an outreach groups.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. I do. Yeah, I do think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that. Don't give me more work to do, please. But yeah, I think that is an exceptional thing. But we are you finding yourself, Simone, that now in this period, we're having an awful lot more people investigating our movement, coming in to find out more, to try and understand, to make a bit of sense of why we're here. The ultimate question: why are we here, and what's it all about?
I think for me, nothing clarifies that more than SNUI, because we have access to all social media with that, and when we see the number of hits we get on social media in different countries, I mean, we're now in 43 countries throughout the world. And that means that never again should we ever hear those words, there's nothing going on in our area, because everybody can have access to SNUI,
Yeah.
and it just means that people can be part of a community if they so wish, or not if they so wish. But it also gives them access to, education and development and listening to, other people and other people's opinions as well. So I feel that is one step in the right direction. It's not the only step by any means. I think there's so much more we need to do to get that word out there and to stop being behind closed doors for so long.
Yeah.
But we've all got to do our own bit in some way, but
yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And there are so many avenues to explore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being typical human beings, we want the way. If we follow this path, that's it. Everything will be hunky-dory. But it isn't. It's about exploring and about trying. We've got a couple of comedians in tonight. So lovely Tim just saying, as a spiritualist, I've been to some church services, had some wonderful mediums with wonderful philosophy and very inspirational. Equally, he's been to some where you wish they would freeze just like computers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did I firm up your booking next year? Oh, well, never mind.
Yeah.
And Jack saying, we will keep you busy.
Yeah.
Phil. Oh, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say about the comment that Tim's just put on there. I think that that comment is really basically a lot of reasons why I think we shouldn't always have a church service every week. And don't get me wrong, I just that I've been a medium secretary, and I know that we've all had connections with churches where we're trying to book mediums, and it's very, very hard when you're up against people that say, oh yeah, but they're really nice people and they're not particularly good at the job,
Yeah.
And I would expect, if I was to employ a gardener, I'd expect to know that the person knew about gardening. So I would expect somebody who's on a spiritualist platform to know about spiritualism, but that isn't necessarily the case. And I feel that there should be maybe more discernment about mediums that are booked. I really do. And I've always said that, and not just fill a slot. I'd rather personally, I would much, much rather see a healing service than have a mediocre medium, if I put it that way.
I agree with you totally. And as I was saying in the pre-going on air discussion, and this is me and how I've handled things regarding the progress of Paul Church. Exactly that, what you've just said. I think churches and centres, their medium secretary, they start off the year with this huge amount of pressure. So if you were to do, say, 3 Dems a week, and you average open 50 weeks of the year, you've got 150 empty boxes staring at you.
That's a lot.
And you panic. And it's like, I know you said a rude word. I know they're not up to it, but it's another box. It's
absolutely.
We're bringing that pressure on ourselves. When we started doing the healing services here, it's quite interesting. There's a couple of comments made locally of, what, you got no medium? Well, you won't get anybody in. Well, we average between 30 and 40 in for our healing hours. Our family gatherings, the same numbers coming in. And I always say with our movement, because we are progressive, and I always urge and try and foster this thing with people that I meet from other venues. Try things.
Yes.
Don't be frightened to try. If it doesn't work, you're not going to die. And if you do die, you're going to go on anyway. So you're not nothing. But try things.
Yeah, try things out. Try and put something different in. When break up the monotony sometimes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Because, some of the congregation maybe won't admit it, but they actually get, here we go again, or I'm not going to go. How many times we hear that? Oh, no, I didn't come last week. I don't like that medium.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, well, that shouldn't be why you're coming to the church or a centre. You should be coming there because you're taking that time to link in with the community and link in with your own divinity. Tim, it's just saying, on a serious note, thank you, Tim. Do you think certain aspects of mediumship go in and out of fashion, and therefore students chase what is in fashion at the moment?
Yeah, I personally, I think that there have been a so-called fashionable mediumship. That's for sure. I'm not sure about today. I personally think that students today are far more discerning than they've ever been about what they want in mediumship, and are maybe more outspoken about what they want in mediumship for themselves, much more today than ever before. I just feel that the bit that I'm hoping we're outgrowing is this idea of mediums having celebrity status.
Yeah.
I feel that and now we're not getting into the theatres so much. You don't see those big demonstrations like we used to. I think that's, personally, I think that's good, because it makes mediumship what it is, which is a natural ability, and not a phenomena that should be revered as a celebrity, you know, and we should be looking at people as celebrities. You know, I like the idea that students today are discerning about what they want for themselves and the kind of mediumship they want for themselves as well. So I'm hoping that the fashion may not be as much as now as it was, say, 20 years ago. I don't know if Tim agrees with that, but
I'm sure he'll let us know. But yeah, and very interesting when we talk about what we call the old school of mediums. So we're going back to the mediums who were sired in like the 40s and the 50s and the 60s of that generation. Absolutely stupendous media. I could reel off several names locally who, you know, I've seen people transfigure. I have seen amazing things just as part of the service, not a special event.
Yeah,
this is part of the service. But in our society now, one thing that was said to me by one of my old tutors, and it really stuck in my mind. And she said, you know, you're not going back 40 years where, you know, somebody would come in with their shopping trolley and sit down and sit through a service. You're getting people coming in now with university and college degrees who are making an intelligent approach and try to develop an intelligent understanding of what we've got, what we're about. And we've got to meet that. And I thought, do you know what? I like that. I do like that. That is very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. I think spiritualism has to come across intelligently. If it doesn't, we've lost it.
Yeah, very true. Another one of your students. You have a very faithful following here, Simone. I'm very impressed.
Oh, I don't know.
The lovely Ron Cox from Florida. And he's saying, as I become an ordained minister, I'm discovering a lot of similarities between metaphysics and spiritualism. They both give greater understanding into the other, and I could actually see the two merging together.
I have to say, I actually thought they were one of the same, or almost the same thing. I have to say that. And I know that there are several in the States, there are several metaphysical societies. And I think that we could learn from them and they could learn from us.
Indeed. Yeah. And metaphysics is something unbeknown to me until a few years ago, and started to investigate it. But one of my latest little epiphanies about it is wonderful understanding energy, but energy is just energy. It has no emotional attachment. It has it is directable by your intent. Whereas within spiritualism, we are dealing with that greater intelligence, and we are dealing with things and interacting. And that's not a criticism of it whatsoever. It was just interest, because I got very much into the energy side of it. And I thought, hang on. Energy is energy. You know, if I think bad thoughts, it's going to be bad thought. You know, it's not an intelligence. It is very much part of it. very much part of it. And also I love the part in metaphysics where you go back through the lineage, through the great philosophers and the tie-ins there as well. But yeah, I agree, Ron, that understanding, I think, will help broaden some spiritualist views on things. Likewise, spiritualism will broaden the views of some metaphysics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that we could learn from them and they could learn from us, basically. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I think that as spiritualists, we should never close our minds to anything different or anything new, you know.
Yeah. No, we should always embrace. I think sometimes we stumble, don't we, because we think we're going to make a fool of ourselves or an idiot. And I always think,
I'm more inclined. I hate to disagree with you, but I'm more inclined to believe that we become complacent as a movement, and it's the complacency that produces apathy that bothers me.
Yeah, I agree absolutely 100% there. But I think also, you know, when people, we're human beings level, you know, change is great as long as it happens to somebody else and not to me. I've got no issue with change as long as it doesn't affect the way I operate. Because we don't want to, you know, we don't want to risk what we would assume to be making a mistake or making a fool of ourselves. But the thing I love about spiritualism is it encourages me to explore my vulnerability.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's the same thing, but just on such a different level. But I'm really looking forward to Ron passing, becoming an ordained minister, because I then can say to him, "What's up, Doc?" I'm so looking forward to that day.
I wish him every success too. I do.
You know what? He is an absolute little star. He's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man. Tim Abbott coming back there and just saying, thank you for your answer. I agree students are more educated in their spiritual and religious beliefs and therefore self-driven as in which direction they go.
Yeah.
And indeed, we see it in our movement and we also see it in the Orthodox movements. Ailing congregations and some of the great, you know, and the Orthodoxy are realizing they've got to actually get out of the custom and creed tradition and investigate new ways. Helen Van Hooft, how are you, my darling?
Hi, Helen.
She's a lovely lady. Apathy and acceptance of the mediator doesn't help spiritualism as a movement. From a Simone Key. Have you emailed everybody, to be honest?
I promise you I haven't, no. Oh dear.
I love it.
She's absolutely right. It doesn't help spiritualism at all. We have to keep, I don't believe we should keep finding different things for different sakes. You know, that's not what I'm about. But I am about changing things. So we don't get stuck into this rut where, you know, 99% of the time I can go to any church, any spiritualist church, and I would know the order of service before I even got in the door. 99% of the time. There may be a couple of differences because they may have ABBA songs instead of hymns, but or they've got Boy's Own or whatever. But, you know, there comes a point when maybe everything about our presentation has to change in terms of keeping people with us and making it, you know, making it progressive is really what I'm trying to say. You know, and helping people to stay with us in terms of that, you know, staying with their community of spiritualists. Because I feel that being with people of like mind has been a real saving grace for me over the years, you know, where I didn't have to explain myself, where I can just talk to people about, you know, my own understanding or my own questions without having to explain everything I do, you know. It's a big difference being with people of like mind. And I feel that that's where people today are needing more challenges in terms of we should be there not with answers to every question. I don't mean it that way, but we should be there encouraging people to think for themselves. That's really what I'm saying.
No, I agree. And within spiritualism, it's wonderful. We have evenings like this in the virtual world. We have our discussions here within the church in person, because we can connect on that soul level. You know, we are hundreds of people. You know, I'm not me, but we can be father, mother, sister, brother, grandparent, friend, enemy, whatever to people. But when we have these times that we're just spiritualists talking on our own spiritual soul journey, the connection is enormous, and it's just like, whoa, it's invigorating. It's totally invigorating. So
good on you, Helen.
You can keep this up all night, Helen. You're not getting a discount on the next calls, right? Bless her. She's a lovely lady.
Absolutely.
Jamie here. I think if we are not moving forward, then we are stuck in the past.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. And from my perspective, where we at Paul went online fairly straight away, I'm in contact with more wonderful people like yourself, with Tim and other people in the room here, also people in charge of churches and centres, and they do ask questions. And one of the questions has been asked a fair few times now of me is, how have you managed to change your service? How have you managed to change your approach? And it's through engaging the people, the congregation coming in. Not, you know, we do have this preponderancy that, I'll give you a prime example. We had many years ago here a dem by two very well-known mediums of the time. The church was packed. We had 145 in. 3 people complained afterwards they didn't like it because it didn't fit in their box of spiritualism.
Oh, okay.
The energy going on from that was, well, we won't have them again. And I was just sat there thinking,
for the sake of 3 people?
Yeah. And
when you've got 150?
Yeah, because, you know, running a church or a centre is a very...
Yeah, but the saying that comes into my mind is you can't please all the people all the time. So therefore, you have to look to the majority and say, okay, well, this is obviously what the majority wants.
Yeah.
You know, as long as the mediums were mediums, I wouldn't have a problem. I really wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah. And this is it. This highlights sometimes the frailties of the groups that are running places of worship. Sometimes if there's any sort of dissent, there's this fear. Oh, right. Okay, we won't do that again, you know, or they will bow to the loudest voice.
Yes.
That is a very common thing. But, you know, we've got to see this core change come from our churches and centres. Therefore, we've got to see that core change come from within our committees and organising bodies to say, well, yeah, it's not going to appeal to everybody. You know, and be honest about it, you know, and try and encourage people to come along on the journey with you. But if they do not wish to, that's absolutely fine as well. If it's not there with an empty church, you've messed it up. I would say, if I come down here and there's nobody in the church, I'll go, okay, I've done it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fortunately, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Helen's very active tonight.
Yes, that's
Then
right.
we will never have progression if always the same. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
It's got to be different. Yeah.
We know this, don't we? We know this as an energy. We know this as a core belief. But just sometimes we lack that little bit of brave, you know, it's sort of like waiting in the trenches to see who be first over the top.
I think also there is another side to it, I think, to be fair, because I think for somehow we've all become very busy people. And there's always that fear of, oh, grief, have I got to take something else on, you know, because I can't manage much else, you know. And I've always been a great support, and I know Helen will know this. I've always been a great supporter of the awareness course. You know, the awareness course where people can come in off the street and they can understand what we do, how we do it, what's involved. And that's where you can bring the philosophy of spiritualism in on a not on a philosophy night, but as a gentle introduction as to back up why we do what we do, what the philosophy behind it is, you know. And I remember I used to do quite a lot of awareness courses for my own church, Norwich Church, and there's not much happening. I know that COVID did do a lot of damage in that, but even pre-COVID, I don't think people were doing as much as I think they can, because that really is the introduction to your circle. That is the introduction to your development. It's the understanding. It helps people on a very basic level, a foundation, if you like, of knowledge and understanding that they can move further forward with. And to me, that's progression.
Yeah. I agree 110%. I really do. But again, I'll bring it back down to, you know, the grassroots. We all know, and without being, there's no animosity. You know, I don't say things to be funny. No. Sometimes within the organising groups for our churches and centres, there's probably a need to review how we do things, I think. Maybe relax this, you know, it's got to be done by a committee member.
Right.
You know,
that's true. Yeah.
And allow people, you know, I am so blessed. I've got a church full of people here who I know I can trust to be in the kitchen, to be on the door, to get up and speak if needs be, to chair for me. They don't want to be on a committee. They don't want to come in every month and talk about the latest tea cozy or whatever we're going to do. But they just want to give something back. And it's fostering that within our churches and centres, I think, will help our growth rather than having this.
And I think also giving people a little bit of responsibility, like running a group, for instance, you know, when they've been with you and they've proved their worth to you, that they know what they're talking about. But that it shows them that you have confidence in them.
Yes.
And they will be loyal to the church. That's the thing.
Yeah, because that is their development as well.
Yeah. And it's that church that's given them that little step up, just to have that little bit more responsibility. And it shouldn't be one person doing everything. That's not good. You know.
Are you all listening out there? Thank you.
It's Mark. Oh, hi,
Mark. Mark's saying, I think there is always a place for traditional and progressive, and finding the perfect balance and enough people to be able to do things.
Yeah. There is a place for it. Yeah, definitely.
Indeed. And you know what? The one immutable spiritual law about balance. I mean, if you bring that into an awful lot of what we do, it starts highlighting maybe where things are a little bit uneven. But yeah, thank you, Mark. Lovely Mark will be here with us tomorrow working. So that's wonderful.
All the best for tomorrow, Mark.
Yeah, he's a very gifted orator.
Yes.
That's a nice way of saying he says a lot. But beautifully said, Mark. Beautifully said. Simone, darling, I could go on forever talking with you.
Thank you. It's a lovely evening. Really nice. Thank you. Really easy.
Just to finish off and bring back in the education. You know, what is there anything you could say to just make people think, you know what, I need to read more, I need to talk more, I need to explore more? Is there anything you could say to sort of like instill that?
I just feel my thing is never be complacent, never feel that you know everything, never feel that you've done everything. and never feel that you're there wherever there is to you. I just feel that there is so much more for every one of us to learn and to discover and unfold. And as we do that, what we're doing is we're finding out about each other. That's what this is all about. It's learning about people. Whether they're in the spirit world or this world doesn't mean that it doesn't matter at all to me. We're all people, and we're people first. And I feel that the more we explore, and the more, this isn't a question of awards or certificates or diplomas, but it is about understanding what is out there, understanding what the spirit world is giving us, and understanding what is needed to make our world a better place. And that's really what we're about. And that's, for me, is all about education. But it doesn't mean you've got to have a diploma to say that, oh, well, now I know I'm a medium because I've got a diploma. That's not what it's about at all. It just means that you've reached the required standard. That's it. You know, the rest is hard work. Yes, the rest is hard work, you know. But,
so many times I say to people, you know, you see it in people's energies and in their words, you know, oh, that's all right, I'm a medium now, or I'm a healer now. And you're like, no, you've got lots more. You have a veritable fan club out there from all across the world.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
I'm very envious. I thought you loved me, Ron. That's it.
Oh, well, I do wish him all the best, Ron, anyway. Thank you. And I wish him all the best on getting his ministership. You know, that'd be great.
Yeah. Good luck to you, Ron, even though you
that's a big one.
Yeah.
I hope you get it quicker than I got mine. It took me 7 years. Okay.
Don't tell him
here's
that. Don't tell him that.
Oh, hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Yvonne, Tim.
Yeah. Oh, thanks a lot, Tim. Nice to see you online anyway here.
Stevie Trollen.
Hi, Stevie. Great. Yeah. Okay, fantastic.
This is a wonderful thing. These evenings are revisited time and time again. So, you know, we're creating where we look back 30 years and say the people then, in 30 years' time, people will be looking back to us today thinking, oh, wow, that was interesting. Or, oh, God, did they get that wrong?
More the latter. That'll be more the latter with me anyway.
Excellent.
All right.
Brilliant. Simone, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Laurie. It's very good of you. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with you. And thank you to everybody else that's come online as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you all.
Okay.
Next week, we will be having a Chesterfield chat. That means our guest will be live with me. And we have the lovely Frederick Hagland, who will be on the Chesterfield next Saturday after taking a week-long course here at Poole. In the meantime, if you wish to catch up with what we're doing here at Poole, I suggest you go onto our website, just search Poole Spiritualist in Google, and the results will come up. Don't forget, we stream our services live. You only see the platform and the demonstrators, but just gives you an idea and makes you feel like you're in church. So, as I said, tomorrow we've got the lovely Mark Stone with us. Next Sunday will be Frederick. And Wednesday we have the lovely David Powell will be demonstrating. So, in the meantime, everybody, have a wonderful night. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for your questions and comments there. And again, Simone, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been lovely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.